The conference room was cold. Tae-Young Kim sat at the human delegation table and felt the weight of 100 alien eyes on him. The Galactic Council station orbited a dead moon, and through the massive windows behind the speaker's podium, he could see nothing but darkness and distant stars. It felt appropriate. The galaxy had seemed so welcoming 3 months ago when humanity first joined the Council. Now not so much. Ji-Woo Park sat beside him, her fingers moving rapidly across a data tablet. She was nervous. Tae-Young could tell by the way she kept pushing her hair behind her ear, a habit she had when stressed. As a xenobiologist, Ji-Woo had prepared for every possible question. But preparation only went so far when you were defending your entire species. The council chamber was enormous. Rows of seats curved in a semicircle, each occupied by representatives from different worlds. Some aliens looked almost human. Others were so different that Tae-Young still struggled to understand how they communicated. There were beings made of light, creatures that floated in tanks of liquid, and things that defied easy description. At the center podium stood Vexther. The insectoid counselor's chitinous body gleamed under the artificial lights. Its compound eyes reflected the room in thousands of tiny fragments. When it spoke, its voice came through a translator device that made everything sound flat and emotionless. "We convene today to address a matter of extreme concern," Vexther announced. "The humans have demonstrated a psychological aberration that threatens galactic stability. We have evidence that must be examined." The lights dimmed. A holographic display filled the center of the room. Images appeared, pulled from Earth's data networks. A human child sleeping next to a massive dog, a woman hugging a tiger at a sanctuary, a man with a wolf hybrid sitting peacefully beside him. Then more disturbing images appeared. Humans swimming with sharks, humans handling venomous snakes, humans riding horses, creatures that could easily kill them with a single kick. "These are Earth's apex predators," Vexther continued. "Species that should trigger fear responses. Species that have killed thousands of humans throughout their history, yet humans deliberately bond with them. They bring them into their homes. They sleep beside them. They call them family." A murmur rippled through the council. Tae-Young watched as Grath, the representative from a herbivorous herd species, physically trembled in his seat. His large eyes were wide with what could only be described as horror. "This is not normal behavior," Vexther said. "In every other species we have encountered, prey animals fear predators. Predators respect other predators. This is natural law, but humans violate this law. They form emotional attachments to creatures that could tear them apart. This suggests either severe mental instability or a dangerous disregard for safety." Loomis, an energy being that glowed soft blue, spoke next. Its voice was like wind chimes. "We do not wish to offend our human colleagues, but we must understand this behavior. If humans can bond with dangerous predators on their own world, what prevents them from weaponizing dangerous species across the galaxy? What if they form alliances with hostile entities simply because they find them emotionally satisfying?" Tae-Young wanted to argue. He wanted to stand up and explain that it was not like that at all. But Ji-Woo touched his arm gently. "Wait," her expression said. "Let them finish." More council members spoke. Each one presented their concerns with diplomatic language, but the message was clear. Humans were weird. Humans were potentially dangerous. Humans needed to prove they could be trusted. Finally, Vexther turned to face the human delegation directly. "Ambassador Kim, Dr. Park, the council requires an explanation. Why do humans pack bond with predators? And more importantly, how can you assure us that this trait will not become a galactic security threat?" This was the moment. Tae-Young stood slowly. He was not a tall man, but years of military service had given him a presence that filled the space around him. He wore a simple formal suit, dark blue with the Earth insignia on his collar. No weapons, no armor. Just a man standing before the combined authority of the galaxy. "Honored council members," he began, his voice steady. "I understand your concerns. I truly do. From your perspective, our behavior must seem irrational, even reckless." He gestured to Ji-Woo, who activated their own presentation. Images of ancient humans appeared. Cave paintings showing humans hunting alongside wolves. Historical records of domestication. Scientific papers about the human brain and its capacity for cross-species empathy. "Humans evolved as social creatures," Tae-Young explained. "We were not the strongest predators on our world. We were not the fastest. We did not have claws or fangs or armor, What we had was each other. We survived by working together. And somewhere in our evolution, our brains developed the ability to extend that cooperation beyond our own species. Jiwoo stood and continued the explanation. Our neurological scans show that when humans interact with animals, especially mammals, our brains release oxytocin. This is the same chemical released during human bonding. Mother to child, friend to friend, partner to partner. Our brains literally cannot tell the difference between bonding with a human and bonding with an animal. This is the aberration we speak of, Vexter interrupted. A malfunction of recognition systems. Or an advantage, Jiwoo countered. This trait allowed humans to domesticate wolves into dogs, to partner with horses for transportation, to use birds of prey for hunting, to keep cats for pest control. Every major advancement in human civilization involved cooperation with other species. This is not a weakness. This is how we survived. Grath spoke up, his voice shaking. But you bond with dangerous animals. Animals that kill. Taeyang nodded slowly. Yes, we do. And I think the best way to help you understand why is to introduce you to someone. The council chamber fell silent. Vexther's antennae twitched with curiosity. Introduce us to whom? To my companion, Taeyang said calmly. She has been waiting on my ship. With your permission, I would like to bring her here, so you can see for yourselves what a human-predator bond actually looks like. Loomis flickered with what might have been concern. What species is this companion? She is a Vinthari shadow stalker, Taeyang said. The words dropped like stones into still water. Chaos erupted. Council members shouted. Several stood from their seats. Security officers along the walls tensed, hands moving to weapons. Even Jiwoo looked at Taeyang with surprise. They had discussed this plan, but hearing him actually say it out loud made it real. Vexther's voice cut through the noise. A shadow stalker? Those creatures have destroyed 3 colony worlds. They are classified as extreme threats. You brought one to the station? She is safe, Taeyang said firmly. She has lived with me for 5 years. She has never harmed anyone. And if you truly want to understand humans, you need to meet her. The council debated frantically. Security Chief Morn, a massive reptilian officer, stomped forward. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow such a creature into the council chamber. Then you will never understand us, Taeyang said simply. You will make your judgment based on fear rather than knowledge. Is that how the Galactic Council makes decisions? The challenge hung in the air. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Loomis spoke. Very well. Bring your companion. But security will be at maximum alert. Any sign of danger and we will respond with lethal force. Taeyang nodded. He pulled out his communication device and spoke clearly. Bring Han Newell to conference room 7. The wait was unbearable. Taeyang could hear his own heartbeat. Jiwoo gripped her tablet so hard her knuckles turned white. Security officers formed a perimeter around the human delegation table, weapons drawn but pointing at the floor. Then they heard it. Footsteps in the corridor outside, heavy, deliberate, the scrape of claws on metal. The council chamber's main doors opened slowly, and Hanuel entered. The creature that entered the council chamber was massive. Hanuel stood 8 feet tall at the shoulder, her body covered in obsidian scales that seemed to absorb light. She moved with liquid grace, each step silent despite her size. Her head was elongated, almost reptilian, but with features that suggested both cat and something far more alien. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows glowed with a soft amber light. Her tail, thick and muscular, swayed behind her for balance. When her claws touched the metal floor, they left small scratches despite her careful movement. Each claw was the length of a human hand. Her mouth, currently closed, showed the hint of teeth that could crush steel. Along her spine, ridges of bone created a natural armor that made her look even more formidable. The reaction was immediate and primal. Grath let out a cry of terror and scrambled from his seat, backing against the far wall. 3 other council members simply fled through the side exits. Security Chief Morn raised his plasma rifle, the weapon humming to life with a threatening glow. A dozen other officers did the same, creating a wall of aimed weapons. Hanul stopped moving. Her 6 eyes scanned the room, taking in the threat. Her body tensed, muscles coiling beneath those dark scales. A low sound came from deep in her chest, not quite a growl, more like distant thunder. She was reading the room as a predator does, identifying dangers, calculating odds. Stand down, Taeyang said firmly. But he was not talking to Hanul. He was addressing the security team. Lower your weapons. You are threatening her. We are threatening it? Security Chief Morn's voice was incredulous. Ambassador, that thing could kill everyone in this room in seconds. She, Tae-Yang corrected gently. Her name is Hanul, and yes, she could. But she will not. Watch. Tae-Yang walked forward calmly. Every security officer tracked his movement, fingers tight on triggers. Ji-woo stayed at the table, her face pale but determined. The council members who had remained in their seats sat frozen, barely breathing. Tae-Yang approached Hanul with steady steps. No fear, no hesitation. When he reached her, he did not pause. He simply walked up to her massive head and placed his hand on the scales just above her eyes. The gesture was gentle, familiar, intimate. Hanul's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The tension left her body. Her eyes, all 6 of them, focused on Tae-Yang with unmistakable affection. She lowered her head, leaning into his touch, and that deep sound in her chest changed. It became softer, rhythmic, almost musical. She was purring. It sounded like stones grinding together, deep and resonant, but there was no mistaking the emotion behind it. Hello, girl, Tae-Yang said softly, speaking in Korean. I know. Too many strangers, but we need to show them who you really are. Hanul's tail swished once, then wrapped partially around Tae-Yang's legs, not trapping him, supporting him, the way a cat might lean against its human, except this cat weighed nearly a ton and could bite through starship hull plating. The council chamber was silent except for that grinding purr. Vex there slowly stood, compound eyes trying to process what it was seeing. How is this possible? Shadow stalkers are solitary hunters. They do not show affection. They do not form bonds. They do not form bonds with their own kind very often, Ji-woo said, finding her voice. She stood and carefully approached, keeping her movements slow and visible. But Hanul was different. She needed someone, and Tae-Yang needed her. Tae-Yang gestured for Hanul to sit. She did. Though sitting still left her head level with his chest. He kept one hand on her, a constant contact that seemed to comfort them both. 5 years ago, I was surveying an uncharted planet in the outer reaches, Tae-Yang explained. We detected unusual energy signatures. When we landed to investigate, we found a massacre. Poachers had attacked a shadow stalker den. They killed the mother for her scales, which are valuable in some black markets. They left the juvenile to die. He paused, his hand moving in slow strokes along Hanul's head. She leaned into each touch. I found Hanul lying beside her mother's body. She was maybe 3 months old. Starving, injured, dying. She looked at me with these eyes, and I saw something I recognized. Fear, loss, the need for someone to help. So you took it, Security Chief Morn said, still holding his weapon ready. You violated quarantine protocols. You brought an apex predator onto your ship. I saved a child, Tae-Yang said simply. Yes, I broke protocols. I accept full responsibility for that. But I could not leave her there to die alone. Ji-woo activated her tablet, projecting medical records and growth charts. I have been studying Hanul for 5 years. She is healthy, well-adjusted, and has never shown aggression toward any human. She responds to verbal commands, hand signals, and emotional cues. But more than that, she chooses to stay. We have tested this repeatedly. Hanul has had numerous opportunities to leave, to return to the wild. She stays because she wants to. Domestication, Vexthir said. You have domesticated a shadow stalker. No, Tae-Yang said firmly. Domestication implies changing a species over generations, breaking their wild nature. Hanul is still wild. She is still a predator. I have not trained the danger out of her. I have earned her trust. There is a difference. To demonstrate, Tae-Yang stepped back from Hanul. He made a simple hand gesture, a forward motion. Hanul immediately stood and walked to the center of the room. Council members tensed, but Tae-Yang remained calm. He made another gesture, a circle with his finger. Hanul walked in a slow circle, her movements controlled and precise. Then Tae-Yang did something unexpected. He gave no signal. He simply stood there waiting. Hanul completed her circle and stopped. She looked at him. Then she made her own decision. Instead of returning to him, she walked over to where Ji-woo stood. The xenobiologist froze but did not run. Hanul sniffed her carefully, then gently bumped Ji-woo's hand with her massive head. Ji-woo, trembling slightly, placed her hand on Hanul's scales. The purring intensified. She makes her own choices, Ji-woo said, her voice shaking with emotion. That is what Tae-Yang means. She is not trained. She is not controlled. She is trusted, and she trusts us in return. Loomis flickered, its light shifting through different colors. This is remarkable, but it proves the Council's concern. Humans bond with creatures that have destroyed colonies. This Shadowstalker species has killed thousands. How can we trust that this bond will not be used for violence? Tai Yang called Hanul back to him. She came immediately, settling beside him again. He looked directly at Loomis, then at each council member in turn. Hanul has saved my life 3 times, he said quietly. Once from equipment failure during a spacewalk. Once from hostile wildlife on another planet. Once from my own darkness. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I am a soldier. I have seen combat. I have scars you cannot see. After the wars, I had nightmares. Panic attacks. I could not sleep. I could not trust. Hanul helped me heal. When I wake up screaming, she is there. When I cannot face the day, she gives me a reason to get up. She is not my weapon. She is my therapy. The word hung in the air. Therapy. Healing. Council members began to murmur among themselves. Grath, still pressed against the far wall, spoke up. But it is a predator. How can a predator heal? Tae-Yang smiled sadly. Because sometimes the most dangerous-looking creatures understand safety the best. Hanul was traumatized just like me. We healed together. We protected each other. That is what pack bonding means to humans. It is not about dominance. It is about choosing family. Vexthir's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of deep thought. You are requesting that we accept this as normal human behavior. I am requesting that you try to understand it, Tai-Yang said. Give me 48 hours. Let me present a full case. Let me show you the science, the history, the psychology behind why humans form these bonds. Let me prove that this is not a threat but a strength. The council debated quietly among themselves. Hanul sat patiently beside Tae-Yang, occasionally nuzzling his hand when his stress levels rose. She could sense his emotions, read his body language in ways that most aliens could not. Finally, Loomis spoke for the council. Very well. You have 48 hours to prepare your presentation, but Ambassador Kim, understand this. If we are not convinced, the council will require that your companion be removed from the station, and humanity's status in the Galactic Council may be reviewed. Tae-Yang nodded. Understood. Thank you for your time. As they prepared to leave, Hanul walked beside Tai-Yang, her massive form moving with careful grace. At the door, she paused and looked back at the council. Her 6 eyes glowed amber in the artificial light. She made a sound, soft and low, almost like a greeting. Then she followed Tae-Yang out. In the chamber behind them, the council members sat in stunned silence. They had come expecting to condemn a human aberration. Instead, they had witnessed something they could not quite explain. A bond between species, a connection that defied their understanding of natural law. And for the first time, some of them wondered if perhaps they were the ones who had something to learn. Tae-Yang's quarters on the station were simple. A bedroom, a small living area, a workspace. The walls were bare except for one photograph. It showed a group of soldiers, young and smiling, standing in front of a transport vehicle. Tai-Yang was there, much younger, his face not yet marked by the lines that worry and pain had carved over the years. Of the 12 people in that photograph, only 3 were still alive. He was one of them. It was late. Station time showed just past midnight. Tae-Yang sat at his desk, trying to prepare his presentation for the council. Files and documents covered his screen, scientific papers about human brain chemistry, historical records of animal domestication, statistics about therapy animals and their success rates, but the words blurred together. He could not focus. Hanul lay on the floor beside him, too large for any normal furniture. She took up most of the available space. Her body curled in a way that somehow still looked comfortable. Her breathing was slow and steady, the sound of it familiar and grounding. But even in sleep, she remained aware. When Tae-Yang's breathing changed, became faster and shallower, one of her eyes opened slightly. Checking on him. I am okay, he told her quietly in Korean. Just stressed. Hanul's tail twitched once. Not buying it, but she let him continue working. The door chimed softly. Jiwoo's voice came through the comm. Tae-Yang? Are you still awake? Come in, he said. Jiwoo entered, carrying a container of tea and 2 cups. She had changed from her formal council attire into comfortable clothing. Her hair was tied back and she looked tired. Hanul raised her head, acknowledged Jiwoo with a soft sound, then settled back down. You should be sleeping, Jiwoo said, setting the tea on the desk. Tomorrow is going to be difficult, I know. I cannot stop thinking about the presentation. We need to make them understand. Jiwoo poured tea for both of them and sat down on the one chair in the room. Hanul shifted slightly to give her more space, a casual gesture that showed how comfortable the Shadowstalker was with the xenobiologist's presence. Can I ask you something personal? Jiwoo said after a moment of silence. Taeyang nodded. In the 5 years I have worked with you, you have never told me the full story. About the wars. About what happened to you. I know bits and pieces from your file, but not the real story. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I think that story might be important for tomorrow. The council needs to understand why Hanul matters to you. Taeyang was quiet for a long time. He sipped his tea, feeling the warmth spread through his chest. Hanul's breathing remained steady, but he knew she was listening. She always listened when his emotions changed. It was during the Unification Wars, he finally said. Earth was still fractured. Different nations, different factions, all fighting for control before we could present a united face to the galaxy. I was a lieutenant, 26 years old. I thought I knew what combat was. He stared at the photograph on his wall. My unit was sent to secure a settlement in the disputed zones. Intelligence said it was abandoned. It was not. We walked into an ambush. They hit us from 3 sides. Heavy weapons, no mercy. His hand tightened around the teacup. I watched my squad die. My friends. People I had trained with, laughed with, promised to keep safe. I watched them die and I could not save them. I tried. I dragged wounded soldiers to cover. I returned fire. I screamed orders that no one could hear over the explosions. But it did not matter. By the time reinforcements arrived, 12 people were dead. 3 of us survived. Jiwoo listened in silence, her face soft with sympathy. After that, I could not sleep. Taeyang continued. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, heard them calling for help. I would wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced I was back in that ambush. The doctors said it was post-traumatic stress. They gave me medication, therapy. Nothing worked. I could not trust anyone. Could not let anyone close, because everyone I got close to died. He set down his teacup and rubbed his face with both hands. The military gave me an honorable discharge, said I had served with distinction, offered me the position in the diplomatic corps as a way to stay useful. I took it because I had nothing else. No purpose, no reason to keep going. And then you found Hanul, Jiwoo said softly. Taeyang nodded. 5 years ago. That survey mission. We were supposed to be looking for mineral deposits. Instead, we found the poacher camp. They had killed the mother Shadowstalker and taken her scales. Just left the body there to rot, and Hanul was there crying over her mother. He glanced at Hanul, who was now fully awake and watching him with all 6 eyes. There was something ancient and knowing in that gaze. She was so small then. Well, small for a Shadowstalker. Maybe the size of a large dog. She was injured, starving, and she was so afraid. She tried to run when she saw me, but she was too weak. She collapsed. And I saw in her eyes the same thing I had been feeling for 3 years. Loss, pain, the desperate need for someone to care. Taeyang stood and walked over to Hanul. He sat down on the floor beside her, and she immediately adjusted her position to lean against him. Even sitting, she was massive. Her head rested on his shoulder, her weight pressing against him in a way that felt secure rather than threatening. I carried her back to the ship, he said, against all protocols, against orders. My crew thought I had lost my mind, bringing an apex predator aboard. But I did not care. I could not leave her there alone. I knew what it was like to be alone with that kind of pain. What happened next? Jiwoo asked. I cared for her, fed her, treated her wounds. She was terrified at first. Would not let me touch her except to give her food. She would growl and show her teeth. But she was just scared. I understood that. So I gave her space. I let her decide when she was ready. He smiled at the memory. It took 3 weeks. I was sleeping in my quarters one night, having a nightmare. I woke up screaming, covered in sweat, convinced I was dying. And there was Hanul. She had somehow opened the door to my room. She was standing beside my bed, just watching me, not threatening. Just there. Hanul made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, her version of confirmation. I started crying, Taeyang admitted. I could not help it. All the pain I had been holding in just came out. And Hanil did something incredible. She climbed onto the bed carefully, trying not to crush me with her weight. She curled around me, and she started purring, that deep grinding sound. And somehow, feeling her there, hearing that sound, I calmed down. For the first time in 3 years, I felt safe. Jiwoo wiped at her eyes. That is when the bond formed. That is when we saved each other, Tae-yang corrected. I fed her body. She fed my soul. I gave her safety. She gave me purpose. Every day I had a reason to get up, to eat, to function, because she needed me, and I discovered that I needed her too. He scratched behind one of Hanul's auditory ridges. She leaned into the touch, purring louder. She has been with me ever since, through diplomatic missions, through difficult negotiations, through good days and bad days. When I have nightmares, she is there. When I feel the panic rising, I just put my hand on her scales and remember that I am here. I am now. I am safe. The council sees a dangerous predator, Jiwoo said. They do not see what she means to you. They see statistics and classifications, Tae-yang agreed. They see shadow stalker attacks on colonies. They see the potential for violence. They do not see Hanul. They do not see an individual who chooses peace, who chooses love, who had every reason to become a monster and chose to be gentle instead. He stood up, energized by his own words. That is what we need to make them understand tomorrow. Humans do not bond with predators despite the danger. We bond with them because we recognize something in them. Strength that could destroy but chooses to protect. Power that could harm but chooses to heal. Anel could kill me in seconds, but she never would. Not because she cannot, but because she cares. Jiwoo stood as well, smiling. That is the presentation. That is what you need to say. Not the science first, the story, the truth. Show them what the bond really means, Tae-yang nodded slowly. You are right. They need to understand the why before they can accept the how. They worked together for another hour, reshaping the presentation, not leading with data but with emotion, not starting with history but with personal truth. When Jiwoo finally left, Tae-yang felt more confident than he had all day. He prepared for bed, going through his nightly routine. Hanul watched him from her spot on the floor, patient and calm. When Tae-yang finally lay down, she moved closer, positioning herself beside the bed where he could reach out and touch her scales if needed. Tomorrow is important, he told her in Korean. They will judge us. They will decide if we belong. Hanul huffed softly, her version of understanding. Her eyes glowed in the darkness. No matter what happens, you are my family, Tae-yang said. You know that, right? You saved me. I will never forget that. The purring started again, that deep rumbling sound that filled the room. Tae-yang let his hand rest on her side, feeling the rise and fall of her breathing. And for the first time since the council meeting, he felt hope. Tomorrow they would understand. They had to. Because this bond was not just about him and Hanul. It was about every human who had ever found healing in the presence of another creature. The full Galactic Council Assembly was even more intimidating than the smaller committee meeting. Hundreds of species filled the massive chamber, representatives from every corner of known space. The room buzzed with dozens of languages, even with translation devices working overtime. Floating platforms held council members who could not exist in standard atmosphere. Energy barriers separated those who required different environmental conditions. It was a testament to galactic diversity, and right now all that diversity was focused on judging humanity. Tae-yang stood at the central presentation platform, Jiwoo beside him. Hanul waited in a holding area just outside the chamber. Security had insisted. Bringing a shadow stalker into full assembly was already pushing boundaries. Having her present during formal arguments might cause a riot. A holographic display floated beside Tae-yang, ready to show whatever data he needed. But he had decided to start somewhere else. Not with science. With truth, honored council members, he began. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to address your concerns. I know many of you are afraid. I know many of you think humans are reckless, perhaps even dangerous, because we form emotional bonds with predators. Today I want to help you understand why we do this, and why it makes us stronger, not weaker. He activated the first image, not a scientific chart, a photograph. It showed a young girl, maybe 8 years old, hugging a large golden dog. The girl was smiling, her face pressed into the dog's fur. The dog looked equally content. This is my niece Hiran, Tae-yang said. She has autism. When she was young, she could not speak, could not handle being touched, would have panic attacks when the world became too overwhelming. Her parents tried everything, therapy, medication, special schools. Nothing worked. Then they got a dog named Barum. Wind in our language, he let the image linger. Barum was trained as a therapy animal. But what he did went beyond training. He learned to recognize when Hirin was becoming overwhelmed. He would press against her, giving her something to focus on. He would lead her away from crowded spaces. He would wake her parents when she had nightmares. Barum was not just a pet. He was her anchor to the world. The image changed. Another photo years later. The same girl, now a teenager, standing with the dog. She was smiling, looking at the camera. Confident, Hirin learned to speak. She learned to manage her condition. She went to school, made friends, built a life. Her doctors said Barum did more for her than years of traditional therapy. Because sometimes healing does not come from medicine or science. Sometimes it comes from connection. From having another living being who cares about you, who needs you, who chooses to be with you. Taeyang could see he had their attention. The council chamber had gone quiet. This is not unique to my niece. Across Earth, we have thousands of similar stories. Veterans with post-traumatic stress who find peace with dogs. Elderly people who overcome depression with cats. Children who learn empathy by caring for animals. Humans have used animals for therapy for thousands of years. We do not do this because we are strange. We do it because it works. Jiwoo stepped forward and activated her own presentation. Brain scans appeared, showing areas lighting up in different colors. This is a human brain during interaction with another human. You can see activity in the prefrontal cortex, the areas associated with social bonding and emotion. Now this is a human brain during interaction with a dog. The two images were nearly identical. The same areas lit up, the same patterns of activity. Our brains cannot tell the difference, Jiwoo explained. When a human bonds with an animal, especially a mammal, our brains release oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. The same chemicals involved in parent-child bonding, friendship, and love. This is not a malfunction. This is a feature of human neurology that has helped us survive and thrive. She brought up historical images, ancient cave paintings showing humans hunting with wolves, Egyptian art depicting cats in homes, medieval tapestries showing horses and riders. Humans have partnered with other species for our entire history. We domesticated wolves into dogs over 30,000 years ago. We formed partnerships with horses that revolutionized our transportation and agriculture. We kept cats to protect our grain stores from rodents. Every major advancement in human civilization involved cooperation with another species. A council member from a crystalline species spoke up, its voice chiming through the translation system. But those were prey animals or smaller predators. Controllable creatures. You bond with apex predators, with shadow stalkers. That is different, Taeyang nodded. You are right. It is different. And that is where I need to explain something about human psychology that might be hard for other species to understand. Humans are drawn to what challenges us, what tests us, what makes us better by requiring us to rise to meet it. He pulled up images of humans engaging in extreme activities, rock climbing, deep-sea diving, storm chasing, space exploration. We climb the highest mountains even though we might fall. We explore the deepest oceans even though the pressure could crush us. We launch ourselves into space even though the void could kill us in seconds. We do not do these things because we want to die. We do them because pushing ourselves against danger makes us feel alive. Bonding with a predator is similar, he continued. It is not about controlling something dangerous. It is about earning the trust of something powerful enough to destroy you, but choosing not to. It is about mutual respect, about recognizing strength in another being and saying, I will be worthy of your trust and you will be worthy of mine. A hologram appeared beside Taeyang. It showed a woman with professional attire, her expression warm but serious. I would like you to meet Dr. Hai Jin Choi. She is one of Earth's leading specialists in animal-assisted therapy and human-animal bond psychology. Dr. Choi, can you explain the therapeutic benefits of interaction with animals? The hologram came to life as Heejin joined the presentation remotely from Earth. Thank you, Ambassador. Honored council members, I have studied the human-animal bond for 23 years. What we have discovered is that animals, especially those we might consider dangerous, offer something unique to traumatized individuals. They offer authenticity. She brought up her own charts and data. Humans who have experienced trauma often struggle to trust other humans. We lie, we deceive, we hurt each other with words and actions. But animals are authentic. They cannot pretend. Their emotions are genuine. When a dog loves you, it is real. When a cat trusts you enough to sleep near you, it is real. This authenticity helps traumatized people learn to trust again. But why predators specifically? Vexter asked, its antennae twitching with curiosity. Because predators understand strength, Heejin explained. Many trauma survivors feel powerless. They feel like prey. Bonding with a predator, earning its trust and respect, helps them reclaim their sense of strength. It tells them, I am not prey. I am worthy of respect from something powerful. This psychological shift can be transformative. She looked directly at the council, her expression sincere. Ambassador Kim's bond with Hanyul is a perfect example. He survived combat trauma. He felt powerless, guilty, broken. Hanyul also survived trauma. She lost her mother, was left to die. They found each other at their lowest points. By caring for each other, they both healed. This is not an aberration. This is the human capacity for empathy extending beyond our own species. It is one of our greatest strengths. Taeyang took over again. I want to show you something else. He activated a video. It showed various clips of humans with their animal companions. A veteran with a service dog walking through a crowded market, the dog alerting him before a panic attack started. A child with severe anxiety hugging a therapy horse, visibly relaxing. An elderly woman in a care facility brightening up when a cat jumped into her lap. These are not isolated cases, Taeyang said. These are millions of humans across Earth, finding comfort, finding healing, finding purpose through their bonds with other species. We have programs where prisoners care for rescue dogs, teaching them both responsibility and compassion. We have facilities where troubled youth work with horses, learning trust and communication. We have countless homes where a pet is considered a family member because they genuinely are family. Grath, the herbivore representative, spoke up nervously. But these animals you show are domesticated. Generations of breeding to make them safe.
Hanyul is wild.
That is different. She is wild, Taeyang agreed. But that does not mean she is uncontrollable. Let me demonstrate. Security, please allow Hanyul to enter. The chamber tensed. Security Chief Morn hesitated, then nodded to his team. The doors opened and Hanyul entered. Even though many council members had seen her the day before, her presence still caused a stir. She was simply too large, too predatory, too alien to ignore, but Hanyul moved calmly. She walked straight to Taeyang and sat beside him, her massive head level with his shoulder. Her 6 eyes scanned the assembly, but there was no aggression in her posture. Just awareness. Taeyang placed his hand on her head. Hanyul, forward. He gestured toward the center of the chamber. Hanyul stood and walked forward, her movements controlled. Stop. She stopped immediately. Turn. She turned to face him. Come. She walked back to him. The corridors of Section 9 were filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Taeyang ran at full speed, Hanyul moving beside him with effortless grace. Despite her massive size, the Shadowstalker navigated the tight station corridors with precision. Her claws found purchase on the metal floor without slowing her down. Behind them, Jiwoo struggled to keep pace, her tablet bouncing as she ran. What happened? Taeyang shouted into his communicator. Security Chief Morn's voice crackled back. Mining drone malfunction. It was being transported through the station for repairs. Containment failed. The drone's defensive protocols activated. It is treating everything as a threat. We have civilian casualties if we cannot contain it soon. What about your security team? Our weapons will destroy the drone, but the blast could rupture the hull. Section 9 would decompress. We are trying to evacuate, but there are families trapped in the recreation area. The drone is between them and the exit. Taeyang reached an intersection and stopped. Hanyul immediately halted beside him, her 6 eyes glowing bright amber. She was reading the environment, processing scents and sounds faster than any scanner. She looked down one corridor, then back at Taeyang. A soft growl, almost questioning. Can you track it? Taeyang asked in Korean. Hanyul's response was to turn and bolt down the left corridor. Taeyang followed without hesitation. Jiwoo came behind, speaking rapidly into her own communicator. I am sending Hanyul's bio readings to Station Command. If we are going to do this, they need to know she is helping, not attacking. They rounded another corner and saw it. The mining drone was twice the size of a human, a sphere of metal and cutting implements designed for asteroid work. But something had gone wrong with its programming. Sparks shot from damaged panels. Its mining lasers fired randomly, scoring the walls and ceiling. The entire machine spun erratically, crashing into walls, its motion unpredictable and dangerous. Beyond the drone, huddled in the recreation area, Tae-Yang could see them. Civilians. Families. He counted at least 20 individuals, including several small children of various species. They were trapped behind the malfunctioning machine, the only exit blocked by tons of spinning metal and cutting lasers. "We need to get past it," Tae-Yang said. "If we can reach the civilians, we can lead them through the maintenance tunnels." "That thing will cut us apart before we get close," Ji-woo said, her voice tight with fear. Tae-Yang looked at Hanul. The Shadowstalker was completely focused on the drone, her body low and tense. This was what she had been designed for by millions of years of evolution: hunting, stalking, taking down dangerous prey. "Hanul," Tae-Yang said softly, "can you do this?" Those 6 amber eyes turned to him. There was intelligence there, understanding. She huffed once. Her version of yes, I need you to distract it, draw its attention, but do not get hurt. Your safety matters more than anything. Do you understand? Hanul bumped her head against his chest, a gesture of affection and acknowledgement. Then she moved. A Shadowstalker in full predator mode was beautiful and terrifying. Hanul's scales seemed to darken, absorbing light, making her nearly invisible in the smoke-filled corridor. She circled the drone with movements so smooth they seemed fluid. The drone's sensors detected her and its lasers swiveled to track her movement. But Hanul was faster. She darted left, then right, never staying in one place long enough for the drone to lock on. The drone spun faster, trying to target the Shadowstalker. Its cutting arms extended, reaching for her. Hanul leaped straight up, her powerful legs launching her to the ceiling. Her claws found purchase in the metal panels, and she scrambled across the ceiling like gravity meant nothing. The drone's sensors struggled to reorient. "Now," Tae-Yang shouted to Ji-woo. While it is focused on her, they ran. The drone was completely distracted by Hanul, who had become a dark blur of movement. She dropped from the ceiling, rolled under a laser blast, then rebounded off a wall. She was playing with the drone, using her natural hunting instincts to confuse and misdirect it. Every feint drew the machine's attention further from the trapped civilians. Tae-Yang reached the recreation area and immediately began organizing the evacuation. "Everyone stay calm, follow me. We are getting you out through the maintenance tunnels." Most of the civilians were in shock, frozen with fear, but they recognized him, the human ambassador, and behind him, keeping the deadly drone at bay, was the creature that had terrified the council chamber the day before, the monster that was now protecting them. A small child, a Grath juvenile with the same large eyes as the council representative, stood frozen near the center of the room. Too scared to move. His parent called to him desperately, but the child could not respond. He just stared at the spinning drone with its flashing lasers. The drone suddenly changed direction. Whatever Hanul had been doing to confuse it stopped working. The machine recalibrated its sensors and detected the largest group of heat signatures, the trapped civilians. Its defensive programming identified them as threats. The mining lasers began to charge, preparing to fire. Hanul saw it happening before anyone else. She launched herself directly at the drone. All pretense of play gone. This was no longer distraction. This was an attack. Her claws, each one capable of cutting through starship hull plating, struck the drone's armored shell. Sparks flew. Metal screamed. The drone spun to face this new assault. Its cutting arms lashed out, catching Hanul across her side. Dark blood, almost black, sprayed across the corridor. Hanul roared, a sound that shook the walls and made every person in the recreation area flinch. But she did not retreat. She positioned herself directly between the drone and the civilians, taking hit after hit from the machine's weapons. "Hanul! No!" Tae-Yang screamed. He started to run toward her, but Ji-woo grabbed his arm. "Let her do her job," Ji-woo said, tears streaming down her face. "She knows what she is doing." Tae-Yang's training as a soldier kicked in. He could not help Hanul if he was in her way. Instead, he focused on what he could do. He ran to the frozen Grath child and scooped him up. The child weighed almost nothing. Tae-Yang carried him to his parent and then turned back to help others move toward the maintenance tunnels. Hanul was bleeding from multiple wounds now, but she had accomplished her goal. The drone's weapons were focused entirely on her. The cutting lasers that could have killed dozens of civilians were instead targeting a single fast-moving predator. And Hanul was using every trick evolution had given her. She was faster than the drone, more agile, more unpredictable. Security Chief Morn's voice crackled over the communicator. Ambassador, we are in position. If we have a clear shot, we can use an EMP burst to shut down the drone. But we need your companion to clear the area. She will not leave while civilians are in danger, Taeyang said, still guiding people toward the exits. Then we cannot fire without risking her. Taeyang made a decision. He pulled up Hanul's image on his communicator and activated their emergency signal. A high-frequency tone that only she could hear. It meant one thing. Come to me now. Emergency. For a moment, Hanul did not respond. She was locked in combat with the drone, her predator instincts fully engaged. But then she heard the signal. She looked toward Taeyang, and in her 6 amber eyes he saw the struggle. Every instinct told her to stay, to keep fighting, to protect the vulnerable prey she had positioned herself to defend. But she trusted him. That was what their bond meant. Taeyang would not call her away unless he had a reason. She broke away from the drone in a final burst of speed, her powerful legs carrying her across the corridor in 3 massive bounds. She reached Taeyang and immediately positioned herself around him and the remaining civilians, her body a living shield. All civilians clear, Taeyang reported. Fire now. The EMP burst was invisible but effective. The drone's lights died instantly, its weapons powered down. The machine crashed to the floor with a deafening clang, nothing more than dead metal and circuitry. Silence fell over Section 9. Then, slowly, the reality of what had happened set in. The civilians were safe. The threat was neutralized. And Hanul, bleeding and exhausted, still stood guard over them all. The Grath child, no longer frozen with fear, approached Hanul slowly. His parent tried to pull him back, but the child was determined. He walked right up to the massive shadow stalker and placed his small hand on her blood-stained scales. Thank you, the child said in his high, whistling voice. You saved us. Hanul lowered her head carefully, bringing it down to the child's level. She made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. The child hugged her, wrapping his small arms around her neck as far as they would reach. Around them, other civilians began to approach, touching Hanul, thanking her. A creature that had been classified as a monster was now being embraced by the very people she had protected. Medical teams arrived, rushing to treat Hanul's wounds. She tolerated their presence only because Taeyang stayed beside her, his hand never leaving her scales. Jiwoo worked with the medical staff, explaining Shadowstalker physiology and how to treat her injuries without causing further harm. Security Chief Morn approached, his weapon holstered. That was the bravest thing I have ever seen, he said quietly. I was wrong about your companion, Ambassador. She is no threat. She is a guardian.